Hey Islanders, this is Hana, and welcome back to my island. Today, let's talk about BTS. If you have watched this channel for a while, you know I care about this group. I'm not quite an army, that's what BTS fans call themselves, but I'm close. I followed them since day one, and I know their industry pretty well, so I respect them a lot. Back when BTS was brand new, people laughed at the idea of interviewing them. I did it anyway. And talking to them back then, I remember thinking, I'm not wrong about this group. They are going to make it. So I kept watching, I kept cheering. Even during my years living abroad, I owed something to BTS. The world's image of Korea changed because of them. Before, if I said I was from Korea, people asked North or South first. Later, people came up to me first. Hey, I'm a BTS fan. They'd say, I'm learning Korean because of BTS. I love the Korean food because of the BTS. When the members came back from military service, I cheered. When BTS recently boycotted the Grammy's new Asian pop category, I cheered for that too. But this time, with the Chris Brown concert, I feel let down. And here's the strange part. In Korea, almost nobody's talking about it. Outside Korea, it's a different story. People are saying even BTS members are getting death threat. I think there is a lot to unpack here from a few different angles. So I gathered everything that's come out about this story, and I added my own thoughts on top. Let's get into it. I run two channels, one in Korean, one in English. So I get to watch two different worlds react to the same event. That's interesting on its own. These days, anything happening in Korea becomes global news. Every move a Korean artist makes, the world watches. It wasn't always like this. Nobody outside Korea used to care much. Funny how fast that changed. Anyway, when I open my Korean channel, most comments say the same thing. Oh, it was just a concert. Why is everyone so sensitive? Then I switch to my English channel, and the tone is completely different. Disappointment everywhere, aimed at two people, BTS members RM and J-Hope. Here's the strange part. Both sides were saying the exact same sentence. Why are you being so sensitive? Korean fans thought overseas fans were overreacting. Overseas fans couldn't understand why Korean fans didn't seem to care. Funny, right? Same words, just pointed in opposite directions. Stand in a different spot and the whole view changes. I kept thinking about that gap for a long time. So on August the 12th, something happened at Rogers Stadium in Toronto. Chris Brown and Usher are on tour together right now. It's called the R&B Tour. RM and J-Hope went to the second show. J-Hope posted a video of himself enjoying the concert on Instagram. Later, a backstage photo showed up. RM, J-Hope, and Chris Brown together. Posted on Chris Brown's own account. Here's the thing. BTS has their own world tour coming up. Same stadium, August 22nd and 23rd. So who is Chris Brown? His name first got tied to the word violence back in 2009. He seriously assaulted his girlfriend at the time. Her name was Liana. He pleaded guilty to felony assault. He got probation. He was ordered into domestic violence counseling. That was supposed to be a turning point. It wasn't. In 2013, in Washington, D.C., a fan asked him for a photo. He broke the fan's nose. He was charged with assault. He pleaded guilty the following year. He was already on probation. So that conviction meant extra jail time. In 2016, he was arrested on a weapon and assault charge. The next year, his girlfriend Karuchi Tran filed a restraining order against him. She said he had abused and threatened her. In 2020, his dog attacked his housekeeper. A lawsuit followed. The housekeeper's side said Brown stood next to her while she was bleeding. They said he took a phone call, then he left. Brown said it wasn't like that. He said he left only after his manager confirmed paramedics were on the way. This past June, a jury ordered him to pay her more than $12.9 million. And in 2023, at a nightclub in London, something else happened. He allegedly hit a promoter over the head with a bottle, then kicked him. He was arrested in 2025. This past July in court, he admitted to all of it. 15 years, and almost every single year, in some form, his name lands next to the word again: violence. This isn't one mistake from a long time ago. It's a pattern, and it keeps repeating. And yet, he still has one of the biggest followings on Instagram. He's still very much a star. Right now, the Chris Brown and Usher tour is completely sold out. Tickets vanished the moment they went on sale. They had to add an extra show. Not enough seats. That made headlines too. So how does this keep happening? The answer isn't one big evil plan. It's a bunch of small calculations, all pointing the same direction, mostly by coincidence. To labels and promoters, Chris Brown is a proven product. Building a brand new star from scratch costs more. It's riskier too. Why bother when his ticket selling power is already there? The American concert industry was never really built to check an artist's character in the first place. Underneath that math, there is a genre culture too. In American hip hop and R&B, there's an old story people tell: the talented troublemaker. Sometimes causing trouble even makes an artist look more appealing. There's a quiet culture that lets this happen. Take the rapper Fabulous. Video evidence came out. It showed him knocking out his girlfriend's front tip. Plenty of fans still defended him online, even after seeing it. And this isn't just my impression. Researchers looked into it. Sociologists Ronald Weicher and Karis Kubrin studied 403 rap songs. Content that justifies violence against women showed up as one of the most common themes. Another study looked at 490 gangster rap songs. 22% of them showed violence against women directly. Around the world, the Me Too movement brought out story after story, survivors speaking out. But in rap and hip hop, specifically, public accounts stayed rare. This is a genre that dominates streaming and radio, huge cultural reach. And yet, people watch this industry a lot less closely than others. There's something else too. Right before this joint tour, Chris Brown and Usher each just wrapped their own solo tours. Both broke records. Chris Brown's Breezy Bowl XX tour became the highest grossing tour ever by a solo black male artist. Usher's Past Present Future tour broke his own career sales record too. So these two didn't team up because they needed ticket sales. Two artists, already at their peak, joined forces. Together, they built a spectacle, too big for one stadium to hold. On top of that, the tour partnered with a charity. Some ticket money goes to an education fund. Spectacle wrapped in good intentions. And together, both wrappings push each man's controversies further out of sight. That one photo, RM and J-Hope standing there with him, added something valuable to that story: credibility. People often call BTS one of the most positive influences in the world. So a photo of them smiling next to Chris Brown sends a message. It says this tour has nothing to do with his history. Whether they meant to or not, that night, RM and J-Hope became part of a story. Chris Brown's story. the one where his image gets cleaned up. So no, nobody sat down and decided, let's protect this man. It's simpler than that and colder. Nobody has any real reason to stop. It's a system that only looks at demand and profit. Morality doesn't even enter the occasion. And in that occasion, there's no line for how a fan actually feels. So, what would this look like in Korea? A few years back, two Korean singers were convicted, Jung Jun-young and Choi Jong-hun. The charges were serious. Gang rape, distributing videos of women filmed without their consent. Both were completely pushed out of the entertainment industry. Seungmi, an idol investigated in the same case, was convicted too, facilitating prostitution, helping cover up the illegal footage. He served prison time. Ko Young-wook was convicted of molesting a minor. He got prison time and an electronic ankle monitor, so this day he still can't work normally. Of course, there are exceptions. Back in 2002, actor Lee Kyung-young was convicted of paying a minor for sex. Afterward, in interview after interview, he claimed he would be found not guilty. That wasn't true. The press ran his claims anyway without checking. Eventually, he made a full comeback. But there was more than 20 years ago now, and here's what stands out. Nothing on the scale has happened since. One night managed to erase what the public remembered. That's a bitter lesson. But it also shows something else. Korea's industry hasn't gotten soft enough to let that happen again. Now think about Chris Brown. Guilt plea after guilt plea. And he still headlines massive tours. Picture that happening in Korea's entertainment industry today? Honestly, it's hard to imagine. So some Korean fans have a real point. When they feel annoyed by overseas fans criticizing RM and J-Hope, there's logic behind. Korea's entertainment industry holds a much stricter standard than America's does. So when fans from a much looser industry turn around and say RM and J-Hope lacked awareness, it can feel backwards. A little unfair, even. But right now, what people are really asking RM and J-Hope about is their own choice. Whether to go to the concert, whether to take the photo, whether to post it. All of that they decided themselves. But let me try saying it from their side for a moment. BTS just boycotted the Grammys Asian Pop category. Right now, they are in the middle of the US tour. Two of the biggest names in that country's music scene invite you to their show. It's not easy to say no to that. Add in the American music industry, these two headlining artists. And Hive, BTS label, has its own business interest in the US too. The situation gets complicated fast. And in Korean culture, when someone invites you somewhere, you are expected to show respect. And Asian artists are still finding their footing in the American market. So an invitation from a major American star might have looked like a rare opportunity. RM and J-Hope may have simply tried their best to honor it. Posting the video, taking the photos, smiling together, being polite. Maybe all of that came from that effort. But that doesn't excuse it. BTS members know better than almost anyone that one sentence, one photo can spread across the entire world. These are people who moved a global institution in 2 weeks, just by boycotting one Grammy category. With that kind of influence, being a polite guest can't be the only thing that matters. They needed to think ahead, to ask themselves what the room would mean to someone watching from outside it. Being a good guest is one thing. Knowing that being a good guest might reopen someone else's wound, that's something else entirely. Holding both of those at once, that's what it takes to carry the weight of platform they stand on now. On the flip side, some Korean fans tell overseas fans it was just a concert, why so sensitive? That usually comes from one thing, not understanding why Chris Brown's name makes people so angry. Honestly, in Korea, the name Chris Brown doesn't carry much weight at all. When I was 20s, he was so famous in Korea, but not now. Barely any Korean outlets covered this story, and the few that did wrote it almost like foreign news. According to US media, overseas fans are furious, they said, reporting someone else's action, not their own. Meanwhile, on international social media, that one photo has been the center of conversation for days. Same event, one side stays nearly silent. The other side is in an uproar. That gap says something. We really are standing on different islands. And this gap isn't just about people not caring. Think about it this way. Someone who's lived through dating violence or gender based violence stands in one place. Someone who's just skimmed a headline about it stands somewhere else entirely. They are not looking at the same photo. For someone who's actually been through that, seeing their favorite idol smiling next to a man who asserted a partner isn't just an unappealing photo. It's a moment where the body remembers real fear, fear that comes rushing back. Most Korean fans only understand Chris Brown's history as information, as a fact they read. For a lot of overseas fans, they have lived through something like it, so it hits completely differently. That temperature difference isn't really about ignorance or rudeness. It's closer to two different bodies carrying two very different experiences. Neither side is fully reading the other's background or the other's emotional context. And both sides think their own moral standard is the only right one. Maybe that gap itself is the most honest challenge facing global fandoms today. Even while carrying that challenge, disappointment is still a valid thing to feel. In the end, overseas fans are asking one question: what does this choice mean today? And a lot of Korean fans brushing it off are reacting from somewhere else entirely. A place where the name Chris Brown never carried much weight to begin with. Different questions. So naturally, neither side's answer satisfies the other. And some people read that gap differently. If the reaction overseas is louder, they say, that's not about different life experience. That's about people making this too political. But before agreeing with that, it's worth remembering what BTS themselves just did. Not long ago, BTS refused to submit their album Arirang for the Grammys' new Asian pop category. That was clearly a political act. Their message was simple. Music shouldn't be sorted by region or language. That was a direct challenge to an industry that tries to separate Asian music from the global market. And it worked. It moved public opinion, it shook the Grammys. The head of the Recording Academy recently suggested the category might get reviewed. Meetings started soon after. People from Hive were in the room. So was the wider Asian music industry. All of that in 2 weeks. So here's the contradiction. You can't play politics when it works in your favor, then demand silence the moment it doesn't. Rice prices on your dinner table, the music industry, everything is political. Let's say discrimination against Asian music deserves outrage, but violence against women is just a matter of taste, nothing worth a fuss. If that's really the logic, then here's the real question. Whose discomfort are we actually willing to sit with? whether to perform, who to take a photo with, what invitation to accept. Every one of these choices is already political. Demanding that someone not be political is itself a political stance. It's asking for silence. It's asking people to accept things exactly as they are. So telling a disappointed fan they are being too sensitive or too political, that's also quietly demanding silence. If we only read this as a difference between Korea's industry and America's industry, we miss something. This crosses borders too. Let me be clear about one thing first. I'm not trying to rank whose wrongdoing is worse here. RM and J-Hope have never committed violence against anyone, but it's worth looking closely at where they stood. Inside a system that protects people who have and stays quiet about it. Look at Usher, who built this tour with Chris Brown, and something strange comes into focus. Sean Combs, known as Diddy, took Usher under his wing. Usher was just 13 at the time. Diddy was later convicted of transporting people for prostitution. He was sentenced to 50 months in prison. Even after that, this past March, Usher gave an interview to Forbes. He used the word legacy to describe Diddy. A video from 2016 showed Diddy assaulting his former partner, Cassie Ventura. It became key evidence at trial. Even Diddy's own legal team admitted the pattern. Domestic violence more than once. Usher didn't mention any of it. What the world saw, he said, and what he personally experienced, those are two different things. That's the man now touring 51 cities with Chris Brown. And RM and J-Hope enjoyed that show with the whole world watching. Then posed backstage for a photo, looking proud or looking pleased. I think what's happening here isn't really about national differences. It's something older, something that crosses gender lines. A kind of club that men join without ever signing up. Flaws get covered up with talent. Convictions get reframed as misunderstandings. Men protect each other's spots. In Korea, too, when male celebrities cause trouble or even commit crimes, they tend to make comebacks faster than women do. Easier, too. Why? Because most of the people making decisions in this industry are men. This particular circle has no nationality. Chris Brown, Usher, and now these two men in that same photo, all inside the same circle. And the hands buying tickets, looking up at that circle, mostly women's. The hearts getting hurt by it, mostly women's too. Here's the irony. A lot of overseas fans came to love BTS in the first place to get away from that exact kind of circle. The idea that you should separate the art from the artist. The culture that looks past the violence as long as someone's talented enough. Or worse, a culture that dresses it up, makes it look romantic, defends it outright. Plenty of people got tired of that old aggressive pattern in American entertainment. They chose BTS as their alternative. And now RM and J-Hope had gone and chosen to stand right in the middle of that very circle. Through all of this, neither Hive nor RM nor J-Hope has said a word. And this isn't the first time. Back in March, a teaser for BTS Arirang album ran into a controversy of its own about race. The video drew on a real historical moment. In 1896, Korean students studying abroad made the first known recording of the folk song Arirang at Howard University. But in the video, the students filling that Howard campus were shown as mostly white. That set off a whitewashing controversy. Howard University was founded after the Civil War to expand education for Black students. Even today, about 70% of its students are Black. One fan's post stuck with me. She wrote that BTS helped her survive something devastating, losing both her mother and her son to COVID, and that this video wasn't a creative retelling, it was an insert. She wrote as someone whose family took part in the civil rights movement, as a Black woman descended from enslaved ancestors, and as a Howard University graduate herself. The label's response was one short line in the video description. This is a work of creative imagination based on a modern interpretation and may differ from historical fact. No personal response from any member. No real apology followed. This time, fans expected the same kind of silence again. And that's not cynicism. That's an accurate prediction. There was a time when even one wave of fan backlash would get the label moving instantly. Now, BTS has grown into a big enough brand, big enough to absorb almost any controversy just by staying quiet. And here's the uncomfortable part. That's the exact same logic that let Chris Brown walk away again and again without real consequences for over 15 years. Once a brand is proven, it doesn't need to show remorse to keep selling. BTS spent years criticizing that exact flaw in the industry. Now, under their own name, they are embracing it. Every thread in this story leads back to one question. Can you love someone and still be disappointed in them? I can't lump every overseas fan's reaction together into one thing. Some let it go quietly. Some were genuinely deeply hurt. Among the quieter voices, one said something like this. Yeah, it's disappointing, but maybe they just didn't know his history. I just hope they are more careful next time. Nearby, there were louder voices too, ones that stuck with me. If a woman artist in this industry had gone to that concert, would people just shrug it off? They are letting it go because he's a man. RM says he studied feminism, calls himself a feminist. So why is he standing there proudly smiling next to a man convicted of violence against a woman? Of course, not every fan said the same thing. But underneath a lot of these comments, there was a similar current running through them. One open letter to RM stayed with me the most. I want to share it here. The fan who wrote it said she knows RM has spent years reading about feminism, talking about what he's learned. But she wrote something sharp. Feminism only means something when it's inconvenient, when there is nothing to gain from it. Otherwise, she said, it's just a part of carefully built image. She wrote about how painful it is to watch him smile, to watch him hug a man who asserted a woman, to watch him publicly promote that man's tour and music. Especially, she added, when most of his own supporters are women. Then she closed her letter with a question. You can stand there smiling while violence against the women is happening right in front of you. So, what's the point of reading books about feminism at all? She asked him not to treat this as cancel culture, but as a moment to look honestly at what his own reaction were saying as a person. It read like advice given with a real love, a request made sincerely. Out of everything I read, one thing moved me most. Posts from fans from every country opening up about their own experiences. Dating violence, gender-based violence. These weren't written to start an argument or to attack anyone. They took real courage, pulling up old pain, old wounds, old memories. For these fans, that photo, RM and J-Hope looking proud and happy next to Chris Brown, was a trigger. There's a BTS song with a line that says, "Don't define yourself by your painful memories." A lot of these fans grew up believing that message kept them safe. Then they saw the photo, RM and J-Hope smiling next to a man who'd committed violence against a woman. And in that moment, a lot of them had to face fear and old trauma all over again. Telling these people it was just a concert, why so sensitive, that's basically asking them to deny their own pain. Writing all of this, what stayed with me wasn't the arguments happening inside fandom, it was these people. If a single photo froze you in place, that doesn't mean you're overreacting. It means your body remembers exactly what happened to you. You don't need to shrink from that reaction. Okay? And honestly, I think the way these fans responded is remarkable. Many of them made something clear. They are still BTS fans. And that's exactly why they can criticize them too. This isn't uncritical loyalty. It's not walking away completely either. It's holding love and disappointment at the same time. That's a hard place to stand. You don't feel disappointed by someone you don't care about in the first place. Disappointment is proof the love is still there. So maybe right now, the people actually living out the BTS own message, "Love yourself," aren't the members on the stage. It might be the fans, hurt and still speaking up anyway. That message was first delivered to the world by RM himself at the United Nations back in 2018. Standing in front of the UN in New York, he told young people around the world this: "We have learned to love ourselves, so now I urge you to speak yourself." A few years later, in another interview, he said this: "I feel a lot of responsibility for the people who put their trust in me. The man who understands responsibility better than almost anyone chose silence, right when his own choice was on the line. If you love BTS and this whole thing left you disappointed, there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. Nobody gets to police someone else's feelings, not by calling it cancel culture, not by calling it oversensitive. Love doesn't require unconditional silence. You can love someone and still be disappointed. In fact, that's often exactly why you feel disappointed at all. And saying that disappointment out loud, honestly, that's a way of taking the relationship seriously, not the opposite. At this point, I don't see these two timelines as two separate worlds anymore. One side lived through something in their own body. The other side just watched it pass by as a headline. Each side is simply seeing the event from the island they happen to be standing on, using only the view available from there. Maybe the best any of us can do is this: leave your own island for a moment, land a boat on someone else's shore, and really try to feel why the view looks the way it does from there. And then we get back in the boat. You don't have to move there permanently, but there's a real difference between someone who visits another island and looks around, and someone who sails right past without ever stepping off the boat. While all of this was unfolding, RM showed up at a tour rehearsal wearing a t-shirts. Printed on it were the lyrics to a Whitney Houston song, "Greatest Love of All." George Benson recorded that song first in 1977. Whitney Houston recorded her own version in 1986. It became one of her signature songs. In the lyrics, the singer says she learned to rely on herself instead of looking up to someone else and leaning on them. The song ends with a kind of vow. Live by what you believe in, whether you succeed or fail. Hold on to your dignity, even if everything else gets taken from you. Was RM speaking to himself or to his fans? What he meant by wearing the t-shirts, that's something each of us will read differently. It probably depends on which island you are standing on and what the view looks like from there. So, what did you think? I'd love to know how you feel about this whole controversy. BTS J-Hope, RM, and Chris Brown. Leave your thoughts below. I would genuinely love to think this through together with you. This has been Hana's Island. You're safe here now. Until next time, take care of yourselves wherever your own island happens to be.